Thank you for that introduction, and I'm very pleased to be here to speak to you all at this very important summit. My name is Maria Simonelli, and I've spent the past 3 decades playing at the intersection of sustainability, capacity building, and creative problem solving. I have what has been referred to as a slash career or a portfolio career that has enabled me to blend my interests with many roles. I'm a writer, researcher, artist, educator and advocate, and these all play a part in my practice. I see myself as a bridge between worlds by helping to facilitate partnerships across sectors to help create vibrant and sustainable communities. I also assist individuals and organisations to learn skill sets, gain confidence and tap into their capacity to problem solve by unlocking their innate creativity. My latest venture, The Creative Catalyst, was born from these parallel interests and has led me to support others to achieve their best creative self. What happens at intersections is a rich creative vein that seeks to encourage a curious and experimental approach to problem solving. So far in 2021, I've produced and released a series of 3 books, all around the topic of the creative advantage, and an online training program aimed at building problem-solving core competencies. As leaders, whether it be in our own families, communities, or in our workplaces, we can have more impact by learning the skills of effective and creative leadership to enable us to manage the challenges we face. Today we'll focus on the challenges we face in our workplaces, with our teams and our organisations, and how by cultivating what I call the creative advantage, we can foster a more productive workplace environment, become better managers, build effective and collaborative teams, and problem solve to create better business solutions. All of these will enhance your career and you'll go from manager to transformational leader. Firstly, I want to define what creativity is. I work from the notion that creativity is on a spectrum that begins with imagination as it progresses to innovation. While the processes and activities of creativity and innovation are similar, they do require an understanding of different approaches. Creativity is associated with developing new products, services and solutions. It examines unknown areas, connecting ideas to find unique problem-solving approaches and novel ways of performing a task. It can be undertaken by an individual, a group, and defined as both a process and an outcome. So in defining creativity, firstly, it must be new, novel and original. Its second component is appropriateness. This refers to the value or the fit in a given context. Value also refers to ideas being workable, useful or adaptive. So for a person's achievements, an idea or a product to be considered creative, it needs to be new or original and of value. Innovation is the ability to scale creativity and often requires collaboration and teamwork. So what's the problem we all face? Let's start by understanding what's defining the world we work in today and the dominant trends that necessitate a change in the way we work and create, and point to the need to develop creative skill sets to assist to navigate this new economy. The first is information overload and attention deficit. Creativity is applicable across all industries, and while there's enormous diversity across professions, there is one constant. All professions say they have less time to think deeply about problems. So why is this? The 21st century has experienced an explosion in the speed and volume of information consumed. With so many ways to access information 24/7, we're feeling busier, but this hasn't necessarily translated to higher productivity. With these interruptions to our thinking, this information overload is changing behaviours and limiting our ability to manage our attention and thus our creativity. It's the scale of the overload, with email the most pervasive, with figures of 5.2 billion worldwide email accounts in 2018. Add social media, messaging apps, an increase in advertising exposure, and a typical adult's daily media consumption has almost doubled in recent years. This overwhelming amount of information also leads to stress, narrowing our attention into more analytical and short-term thinking, and is a hindrance to long-term sustained creative thinking. We choose where we place our attention. When we stop, our thoughts have a chance to come to the surface and to the attention of the conscious brain, to move from a distracted to an absorbed state. This absorbed focus and the ability to control our attention is fundamental to optimal performance. While the longer-term implications are yet to be realised, we all need to become more selective about the information we consume. Education and management practices are evolving, but not fast enough to cope with the changes we're experiencing. Now more than ever, we need to ensure we spend time and energy cultivating creativity skills, creating environments and habits that enable us to incubate ideas. The uncertainty of work. As well as death and taxes, the other thing we can all be certain of in life is change. VUCA is a managerial acronym to describe the volatile, uncertain, complex and ambiguous nature of business. Its aim is to emphasise the volatile characteristics of instability and speed of change, information gaps and unpredictability of the future leading to uncertainty, the overwhelming and complex nature of relationships and information, and the lack of clarity or the unknown unknowns leading to ambiguity. It characterises the world of work. For many of us, we will no longer have a lifelong career in one job, role, or even discipline. It's no longer realistic because of the nature and pace of this change. We can already see this with the growth of contract work in a gig economy, leading to the need for adaptive and flexible work approaches. This changing environment is also asking workers to take greater responsibility for their employability through continuous learning via informal approaches, stretch work, networking, mentoring, and accumulating a portfolio of portable skills. Employers expect young people to act as intrapreneurs by taking ownership of their roles, working cooperatively, and actively adding value to an organisation. An example is seen with the hiring procedure of Google, one of the world's most highly ranked innovation companies. According to their Director of Talent, they look for intellectual curiosity, a bias towards action, and a problem finder. They prize collaboration, the ability to recognise and learn from others around them with different kinds of expertise. Next, let's look at workplace trends. Are workplaces listening to the creativity trends underway? Business leaders use creativity to explain the need for core competencies in leadership and management. The rate of change in the world, the ever-increasing complexity of problems, the highly competitive nature of business, combined with the increase in technology-driven responses, all point to the need for more creative solutions. Alongside this is a need for creative thinkers and creative leadership. This was reinforced in an IBM report highlighting that CEOs are increasingly challenged by managing in a VUCA environment. This widely quoted study of 1,500 CEOs from 33 different industries across 60 countries identified creativity as the most important leadership quality, along with the need for increased experimentation and innovation to achieve success. There's also a growing case that the world of work will be defined by people who are not only good at problem solving, but are also adept at problem finding. These people are intensely curious and willing to apply their cognitive abilities to exploring the grey zone adjacent to the existing opportunities until they identify a vein of gold. Future-proofing people. We often hear about future-proofing jobs in this age of automation and artificial intelligence, but the research indicates that factors like ageing population and increased demand for housing and infrastructure will influence the sectors projected to grow. Industries that will experience employment growth over the next 5 years are health and social assistance by 15%, professional scientific and technical services by 10%, construction by 10%, and education and training by 11%. Let's think about future-proofing people by developing their skills in complex problem solving directly related to creative thinking, as well as social and emotional intelligence to help build relationships and to read people. A recent World Economic Forum report asked chief human resources and strategy officers from leading global employers about the current shifts across their workforce. They reinforced that creativity will become one of the top 3 skills workers will need. With the avalanche of new products, technologies and ways of working, workers are going to have to become more creative in order to benefit from these changes. In terms of the top 10 skills, creativity moved from 10th to 3rd by 2020. This is also mirrored in the report from the McKinsey Global Institute, showing the demand for higher cognitive skills, including creativity, will rise by 10% by 2030 and will continue to hold the highest value. The growth of artificial intelligence. Developments in machine learning and robotics point to the role they play in jobs that allow computer-related technologies to substitute for labour in both routine and non-routine manual and cognitive tasks. The most vulnerable occupations are related to transport, logistics, manufacturing production, construction, and office administration. But occupations like artists, architect, web designers, IT specialists and public relation professionals all rise in importance. Specific management roles like marketing, sales, advertising, as well as a range of computer engineering science occupations are also considered highly creative. Creative problems are the least susceptible to automisation and have a lower risk of being replaced by machine learning or mobile robotics. This isn't surprising as creativity can't be easily replicated or programmed by a machine. Computers are most successful when they emulate human labour once a problem has been specified and the environment is sufficiently simple to enable an autonomous control. Robots still struggle with tasks that are highly interpretive, where the response has not been fully specified in advance and where the task environment is complex and can't be simplified. As technology progresses, our creative skills, essential for problem solving, strategizing and generating ideas, will drive businesses forward and become even more important. Building our creative thinking skills and outputs that involve valued originality are an advantage now and into the future, providing you with a competitive edge. What does this summary of the dominant trends tell us? Authors Chris Lewis and Pippa Milgram, in the book they wrote called The Leadership Lab, advise us to learn from the leadership lessons of the past, that all share a common denominator. They believe leadership fails where there is a lack of imagination. Problems happen where there is an inability or an unwillingness to envisage alternative possibilities. The most enduring advantage that will assist individuals and organisations to stay ahead is their ability to learn and stay curious. People will always be better at imagination and creativity than computers. The future belongs to people who are curious. People who are inclined to set off on intellectual adventures will have more opportunities to do so than ever. People who merely seek quick answers to someone else's questions will fall out of the habit of asking their own or never ask them in the first place. So now we know why we need to learn to become more creative. Let's explore what are some of the key ideas to help us focus on becoming more creative. Now, because we have limited time, I'm going to introduce you to a key model I've used called the Creative Elements model. It has 4 key elements that are important as we can influence these to increase our creativity. I've adapted and simplified it to emphasise the key areas that we can directly influence. The model was originally based on work undertaken by Professor Teresa Amabile from the Harvard Business School, known for her long-term research on creativity. Her team has created a neat theory that helps us to understand these 4 elements that, when aligned, can assist us to take full advantage of creating the best creative outcome. So let's do a quick summary of each of the 4 components. They are intrinsic task motivation, domain expertise, creativity relevant processes, and an external component, the social or work environment. Intrinsic motivation explores one's passions and willingness to engage and the desire to solve a problem for the mere challenge and satisfaction of working on it. It's opposite to extrinsic motivation that arises from rewards, competition, evaluation, or a requirement to do something in a certain way. Domain expertise is the knowledge, technical skills, or talent in an individual's given domain. These are necessary resources, skills, and the raw materials that individuals will draw upon as they move through the creative process. The creativity relevant processes are the skills or techniques we use to approach a given problem to generate solutions and examine it from various angles, as well as combine our knowledge from various fields and depart from the status quo response. They may vary depending on personality characteristics that are conducive to independence, risk-taking, and taking new perspectives on problems, as well as a disciplined work style and tools to generate ideas. The 4th element is the social environment or the work environment. This element exists outside of the individual. We'll learn that as individuals or organisations, it's the area we can most influence, either positively or negatively, to affect our creative expression. So how can you use these elements to develop your own strategy to increase your approach to creativity? Let's start with motivation and mindset. This is a quote from Sir Ken Robinson. It's often thought that creative people are either born creative or not, just as they may have blue or brown eyes, and there's not much they can do about it. The fact is, there's a lot you can do to help people become more creative. If someone tells you they can't read or write, you don't assume that they're not capable of reading or writing, but they haven't yet been taught. It's the same with creativity. When people say to me they are not creative, I assume they just haven't yet learnt what's involved. The research shows that intrinsic motivation is more conducive to creativity. This refers to behaviour that's driven by internal rewards. People display self-direction and a devotion to becoming better at something that matters to them. That connects them to their quest for excellence to a larger purpose. This contrasts with extrinsic motivation, which involves engaging in a behaviour to earn external rewards or avoid punishment. Motivation's relationship to mindset. When it comes to pursuing creative endeavours and the motivation to continue, the way we approach problem solving, the unexpected pathways these challenges may take us, and the perseverance to continue through these setbacks, these all point to our belief systems and the concept of mindset. Psychologist and the author of the book Mindset, Dr. Carol Dweck, describes her research as looking at the origins of mindsets, their role in motivation and self-regulation, and their impact on achievement and interpersonal processes. Her research provides a way to see our creative abilities and, of most importance, whether we believe with practice and effort we can learn new creative processes and skills. She created the two mindset theory and believes that people lean towards one of these, either fixed mindset or growth mindset. Those who favour a fixed mindset assume that abilities, intelligence and creative talents are static and can't change in a meaningful way, whereas those with a growth mindset enjoy and even thrive on challenge. They view setbacks as an opportunity for growth and learning, and our intelligence and abilities can be influenced through effort. Mindsets play out in life, impact what we strive for, what we see as a success, and whether we treat failure as a mistake or a learning. Professor Dweck also believes there is a direct link between creative people and their mindset. She wrote, in a poll of 143 creativity researchers, there was wide agreement about the number one ingredient in creative achievement, and it was exactly the kind of perseverance and resilience produced by the growth mindset. The next part of the model is domain expertise. Consistently and overwhelmingly, the evidence shows that experts are always made, not born. Any accomplished creative or innovative person has worked hard to get to where they are, specifically in gaining the education, technical skills and knowledge needed to be successful in their domain. All creative modes require the creator to know their subject area. It's even better when they have a diverse knowledge in unrelated fields. So, how can we add value to building our domain expertise? There's additional value to be gained through deliberate practice, as the way we practice has a large bearing on how we learn and the sorts of abilities that can be developed. If we want to get good, I mean really good, we need to spend our practice time wisely. This is particularly relevant as parents, managers, coaches or performers to appreciate the level of commitment required to elevate a skill to a higher order. Understanding deliberate practice enables us to get the most from the time allocated and to increase our domain expertise to support us through the creative process. The term came into prominence as educators identified the critical factors that contributed to the successes of elite performers. The work led by Professor Anders Ericsson, with contributions by over 100 leading scientists, researched expertise and top performance in a wide variety of domains, from surgery, acting, chess, writing, computer programming, ballet, music, aviation, firefighting, and many others, and led to clear conclusions. Deliberate practice requires considerable, specific, and sustained efforts to do something you can't do well, or even do at all. Research shows that it's only by working at what you can't do that you turn into the expert you want to become. Professor Ericsson defined deliberate practice as characterised by these features: well-defined and specific goals, focused and concentrated effort, high repetition of a specific activity in a learning zone, a coach or mentor who can share best practice approaches, feedback to ensure the practice isn't reinforcing bad habits, and getting out of one's comfort zone. Deliberate practice works by tapping into superior reasoning methods and powers. It changes the body and the brain by building our mental and physical systems, enabling people to improve reaction times in physical sports or by developing better and faster understanding of what they see. It also aids in working memory recall and the ability to retrieve information and data. In every area that scientists have studied, the findings are the same. Long-term training results in changes to those parts of the brain that are relevant to the particular skills being developed. Some of the studies have focused purely on intellectual skills like mathematical ability or playing a musical instrument. Regular training leads to changes in the parts of the brain that are challenged by the training, and the brain adapts to these changes by rewiring itself in ways that increase its ability to carry out the functions required by the challenges. Finally, the cognitive and physical changes caused by training require upkeep. Stop training and they start to go away. What do we do with this advice about deliberate practice and the links to domain expertise? The value of deliberate practice in relation to domain expertise is that it can have influence over our own or our employees' development, to gain higher order capacity in our domain and to assist us to be our best creatively. The research reinforces the need for stimulating environments, managers that encourage curiosity, provide structured and supportive environments, and will go to some lengths to support their staff practice. Practice increases the ability to learn, making it more rewarding and enabling us to continue with the investment that deliberate practice requires. But if you want to become an expert, Professor Erickson emphasises it takes time. His research showed that even the most gifted performers need a minimum of 10 years or 10,000 hours of intense deliberate training before they win international competitions. The goal is not just to reach your potential, but to build it, to make things possible, and about getting out of your comfort zone and forcing your brain or body to adapt. The next element of the Creative Elements model is 7 creative skill sets. Let's now explore how personality and our behavioural traits can influence our approach to creativity. In particular, let's review the specific skills you can develop to become more creative. Here I point to the research undertaken by Dr. Mandel and Dr. Jordan in their book, Becoming a Life Change Artist. They identified a number of creative skills and behaviours that were consistently represented by the great masters of art. The 7 creative skills are central to the creative success of the artists they studied, and they linked this to business leaders responsible for creating innovations in the products and services of their operations. They also demonstrated that each of these skills and behaviours was able to be taught and learnt by anyone. When psychologists use the term personality, they're referring to the unique and consistent set of behaviours, feelings, motives or thoughts that characterise an individual. Their view is that there's a set of particular personality traits that make creativity more or less likely to happen. Creative skills may vary depending on personality characteristics, but the skills overwhelmingly point to those who are curious, open to experience, and take a new perspective on problem solving. So let's define this further by looking specifically at the 7 creative skills. They provide a highly applicable framework for anyone wishing to successfully create change in their lives, to assist them to discover how creative they really are and how much more creative they could become. Briefly, the 7 creative skills are preparation. This is deliberately engaging in activities that help break us from our usual patterns of thought and feeling and prepare us for creative insight. Seeing. Having the ability to discern new connections, gain fresh perspective, and stay alive to new possibilities. Using context. Understanding how the varied environments with which we work and live influence our thoughts and behaviours, and using that knowledge to make changes in our lives. Embracing uncertainty, acting on the opportunities, sometimes hidden, that are presented by change and uncertainty. Risk-taking, acting without certainty of the outcome. Collaboration, engaging with others to help one make desired changes. Discipline, acting consistently whether or not one feels motivated. The last element is the influence of the social or work environment. This final element of the model is the external element and refers to the areas of influence across your personal, social and work environments. It's particularly relevant in building a creative life as parents, nurturing a child's creativity through to schooling, and as managers in the workplace. But let's focus on how the work environment is important to build your creativity. The research clearly shows that the work environment has a significant effect on a person's level of intrinsic motivation, which in turn affects the person's creativity. Let's explore this by undertaking a reflective exercise. What do you consider important in your workplace to support your intrinsic motivation? Given motivation is such an important factor in workplace creativity, let's reflect on what the intrinsic motivators you could need to be at your creative best. Apply the following to your current role and consider how this awareness might change the way you think about your motivation. So take out a pen and paper, and on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being not important and 10 being very important, consider the following. Does your current role provide an intellectual challenge? Research consistently points to a large proportion of people being motivated by the intellectual challenge of the role. This is particularly the case with roles with a research component. Challenge is defined as the perception that jobs and/or tasks are complex and interesting, yet at the same time not overtaxing or underwhelming. This links back to the concept of flow and being in a state where you're absorbed in a task. Finding roles that challenge you will help you increase your time in flow, but this relies on having the skills to rise to the challenge, otherwise it will result in increased anxiety. How much independence or autonomy do you need in your role? Researchers have found that creativity is dramatically enhanced when employees are given the freedom to decide how they do their jobs. Managers have an important role to play here to ensure they define clear goals and ensure staff know what they're aiming for and don't shift the goalposts along the way. Research also shows that when jobs are complex and demanding, that is, they're high on challenge, autonomy and complexity, the employers are more likely to focus their attention and effort. This makes them more persistent and more likely to consider different alternatives, which should result in creative outcomes. Does your role enable you to pursue your passions? Some people are simply more revolutionary in their thinking than others and are suited to more radical projects. These people need to be well matched to a project, giving them license to be independent. They should in some parts set their own agendas through spending a percentage of their time on projects of their own choosing. It's particularly important when creative and innovative projects that these are matched with people with appropriate set of skills and have the resources that enable them to rise to this challenge. What type of management engagement do you appreciate? Managers can still make a difference, and a good leader can inspire creative work. A manager's engagement and attitude to a project can be the defining factor in individual and team creative responses. This points to a manager's role as the appreciative audience. It also reinforces that seemingly little things like public recognition can go a long way in maintaining motivation. Are you adverse or embracing of failure? This catch cry of embracing failure is relevant for both managers and staff. There's more acceptance in management that they should aim to create environments that decrease the fear associated with failure and reframe it as an experimentation and learning. This is easier said than done, as the fear of failure can rise with the scale of the business. As managers and workers, can the history of failure be reframed to improve your creative problem solving, team learning, and organisational performance? And in conclusion, there's a strong case put forward by both business leaders and researchers that creativity is a core competency skill. To lead both people and an organisation requires expertise, direct and indirect influence tactics, and creative problem-solving abilities. Research professor Michael Mumford says a leader's performance within an organisation is based on the degree to which they can successfully facilitate others towards meaningful goals, as well as the ability to circumvent and resolve issues that impede progress. Leadership performance is directly related to an individual's capacity to use their creative problem-solving skills to resolve these complex social problems. Transformational leadership is much more than being a spectator or leaving creativity to chance. It's a form of leadership at the highest level of development. Being self-aware of areas you need to improve and the mastery in the use of tools and the process of creativity. There's no doubt that effective leadership is critical to the success of organisational creative and innovative efforts. Having teams of highly creative people is of little use without the leadership to guide and mobilise them. Whether it's a management or a leadership role, individuals in these positions must recognise that creativity and creative problem solving are 21st century leadership skills. The keys to making change stick are knowledge and consistency, having a strong understanding of the creative tools and techniques to facilitate progress, and using the creative process whenever solving a problem. To find out more about how you can gain the creative advantage and use this to enhance your career, check out the free resources as well as the products available at www.thecreativecatalyst.com.au. Plus, for Summit participants, check out the free guide, Manager's Guide to Enhance Workplace Creativity, available to all participants at the website. Thanks for listening, thanks for your time, and have a great summit.